The first question that grips you might seem simple. What would happen if the world could see every secret you thought was private? Meghan Markle's private yacht, luxurious, isolated, and meticulously hidden from the public eye, was supposed to be a sanctuary, a floating palace where the pressures of royalty could be left behind. But when the FBI finally unlocked its doors, they discovered that it was not a haven at all. It was a vault of secrets. Footage, recordings, and documents meticulously stored, all of it pointing toward a world that very few were meant to see. The first images that streamed out of that investigation sent shockwaves through the UK, through Buckingham Palace, and across social media in a way that no one could have predicted. The question on everyone's lips: what was Meghan hiding on her yacht, and why did the FBI feel it was necessary to intervene? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. From the outset, this was no ordinary investigation. The yacht, docked far from the prying eyes of the paparazzi, seemed like an ordinary statement of wealth and power. But anyone who has ever been close to Meghan knows that appearances are never the full story. For years, whispers had swirled. Rumors of secret meetings, of arguments caught on hidden cameras, of staff who were loyal in public but quietly recording every interaction for personal leverage. Some dismissed these rumors as palace gossip, while others wondered if there was more to the story than anyone could imagine. And now, finally, the FBI had the answers. The initial breach was methodical. The authorities didn't storm the yacht as if expecting a crime in progress. Instead, it was surgical, precise, and above all, quiet. Every door, every hatch, every hidden compartment was mapped before the raid, revealing a level of preparation that seemed almost cinematic. And when the first recording was found, an argument that had taken place between Meghan and an aide, the sheer intimacy of the moment was breathtaking. No one had seen her like this before. Vulnerable, frustrated, and at times strikingly unguarded. For the British public, it was surreal. This was not the polished, composed figure seen in media appearances or carefully staged interviews. This was a woman in her private world, with tensions spilling into moments that would forever change the narrative. What makes this discovery particularly fascinating is the sophistication of the setup. Hidden cameras were not the work of a casual observer or an overzealous staffer. They were meticulously placed, capturing angles that ensured no detail went unnoticed. Conversations in hallways, private meetings in conference rooms, even staff interactions in the galley, all recorded. Every sigh, every subtle exchange, every raised eyebrow was preserved, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. And when the FBI reviewed the footage, they began to piece together a story that no palace press release or tabloids could have anticipated. There's an element here that cannot be understated: the emotional weight of what was found. Some of the staff recordings revealed breakdowns that were both tragic and shocking. Employees who had dedicated years to the royal household were caught in moments of complete vulnerability. There were confessions whispered under the assumption of privacy, disputes over loyalties that nobody had imagined, and moments of fear that the wrong word might end a career. The psychological intensity of these discoveries was staggering. And then there were the recordings that went beyond the staff. Meetings that involved Meghan's most trusted advisors, discussions of private business arrangements, and strategies that suggested a level of planning that few outside the inner circle could have predicted. Even before the raid, there were clues that this yacht was more than just a symbol of luxury. Those close to the royal household had long speculated about the strange comings and goings, about shipments of unmarked packages, and about the unusually tight security. Many dismissed it as the normal behavior of someone in Meghan's position. After all, privacy is a luxury few enjoy. But in hindsight, these were all breadcrumbs leading toward a revelation that would stun the entire monarchy. The discovery of recordings and documents on the yacht provided context to rumors that had long circulated but were never substantiated. It was proof that some stories, no matter how unbelievable they seemed, contained kernels of truth. And yet, even as the story broke, questions remained. How much of this was strategic? How much was unintended exposure? Could it be that Meghan had no idea the recordings existed, or was she, as some sources suggested, actively overseeing this catalog of her private world? There were contradictions everywhere, which made the narrative even more compelling. Witnesses disagreed. Sources leaked partial accounts. The footage itself sometimes conflicted with public statements that Meghan had made in interviews and speeches. The public was left to navigate a labyrinth of truth, half-truth, and speculation, each layer more tantalizing than the last. Perhaps the most shocking element of all is the sheer scale of what was discovered. The yacht wasn't just a private retreat, it was an archive. Dozens of hours of recordings, confidential memos, staff logs, and private notes. Each file had the potential to tell a story of loyalty, betrayal, and human emotion that would have been unimaginable if it weren't so meticulously documented. And the FBI, acting as both investigators and curators in this scenario, suddenly held the keys to a narrative that could shift public perception in ways the monarchy could scarcely control. There's also an ironic twist here that adds another layer of fascination. Meghan has long been presented as a symbol of empowerment, independence, and a modern approach to royalty. Yet, the private footage reveals a world where control was never absolute, where tensions with staff and aides bubbled to the surface, and where the veneer of composure sometimes cracked. The footage humanizes her in ways that few anticipated, even as it introduces elements of scandal and controversy that are bound to dominate conversations for months. It's a contradiction that compels the viewer, the reader, the public to ask, what is the real story behind the public image? And let's not forget the implications for the wider royal family. Buckingham Palace, for all its centuries of tradition, has always relied on privacy as both a shield and a weapon. Now, with this cache of recordings exposed, or at least known to exist, the monarchy faces questions it cannot easily control. Internal discussions, private meetings, and perhaps even strategy sessions about succession and influence may have been captured without the participants fully understanding the stakes. And that is where the tension rises. In a world where secrets are power, the discovery of these secrets threatens to destabilize relationships that have been carefully maintained for generations. But here is the real kicker. The story doesn't end with discovery. The content of these recordings is being analyzed, cataloged, and, inevitably, leaked in ways that will generate both outrage and fascination. Each snippet released to the public is a spark, igniting conversations, speculation, and arguments. For the average citizen, the yacht may seem distant, removed from daily life. Yet, in reality, what happened on that vessel has consequences that ripple through the media, the monarchy, and the global audience in ways no one could ignore. And the tension continues to build. What exactly was captured in these private moments? And who will emerge from this saga unscathed? So, as we begin this journey into Meghan Markle's private world, the yacht, the footage, the hidden documents, one question dominates everything. What is the line between privacy and accountability when the world is watching? What will the UK think when they see the unfiltered reality of life aboard Meghan's floating palace? And, most importantly, what comes next after the FBI has seen it all? The answers are both shocking and deeply human, revealing not just the secrets of one woman, but the complexities of power, loyalty, and the lengths people will go to protect what they cherish most. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The yacht was more than a vessel. To the outside world, it was a gleaming statement of wealth, privacy, and prestige. A floating palace where Meghan Markle could escape the relentless gaze of the media. But to those who stepped aboard, it was something entirely different. A labyrinth of secrets, tensions, and hidden truths. Every corridor, every cabin, every lavish room told a story that few were meant to hear. And when the FBI finally breached the yacht, the reality of what lay within shocked even the most seasoned investigators. From the moment you enter, the yacht's luxury is undeniable. Polished teak decks gleaming under the sun, plush cabins lined with silks and designer furnishings, and panoramic windows revealing endless stretches of ocean. The attention to detail is meticulous, almost obsessive. Yet, beneath this veneer of opulence lies a complex network of concealed rooms, hidden compartments, and security systems designed not merely for privacy, but for control. Cameras, tiny, unobtrusive, yet strategically placed, watched every hallway, every stairwell, and even areas that were ostensibly private for staff. Microphones and sensors recorded sounds and conversations that, until now, were impossible for the public to imagine. What the FBI discovered first was not what anyone expected. A recording, innocuous at first glance, revealed an argument between Meghan and a senior aide. But the intensity was staggering. Her voice, normally poised and composed in public appearances, carried frustration, exhaustion, and raw emotion. The aide, equally tense, struggled to maintain composure while navigating a labyrinth of conflicting demands. The footage captured subtle gestures, unspoken warnings, and a level of emotional complexity that painted a side of Meghan few had ever seen. It was intimate, revealing, and, in many ways, humanizing, but it also raised questions about control, power, and the pressures of life within the royal orbit. And yet, this was just the beginning. Hidden throughout the yacht were dozens of similar recordings. Conversations between staff members, discussions about logistics, even moments of private reflection, all meticulously captured. Some footage appeared routine, almost mundane. A crew member correcting a misplaced item, an assistant discussing scheduling. But layered beneath these seemingly ordinary moments were traces of tension, secrecy, and anxiety. Staff members whispered about loyalty, expressed concern over who might be watching, and occasionally made veiled references to power dynamics that were invisible to anyone outside the yacht. It was a psychological maze, a world of unspoken rules and silent surveillance, and the FBI had just stepped into the heart of it. One of the most striking aspects of these discoveries was the contradictions they revealed. Meghan, as presented in public, was the embodiment of grace, modernity, and strategic poise. Yet the private footage told a more complex story. There were moments of vulnerability, exhaustion, doubt, frustration, that contrasted sharply with her composed public persona. There were tensions with aides and advisors, disagreements over protocol, and private debates that never made it into the media. Each clip seemed to challenge the narrative the public had been fed for years, introducing layers of depth, complexity, and, for some, controversy. Security measures aboard the yacht added another layer of intrigue. The FBI noted that access to certain areas was heavily restricted, requiring codes and biometric verification. Hidden doors led to storage spaces, and some compartments contained not only footage but also private documents, letters, and personal notes. It was clear that whoever orchestrated this setup was meticulous, perhaps obsessive, in their desire to preserve a record of events, interactions, and behaviors. Some experts speculated that this collection of private materials served multiple purposes: personal reference, strategic leverage, and, potentially, insurance against future conflicts or disputes. As investigators moved from room to room, the narrative of life aboard the yacht began to unfold. They discovered patterns, routines, and behavioral cues that suggested a highly structured environment where loyalty was constantly tested. Staff members were caught between personal ambition, professional obligation, and the complex social dynamics of serving a member of the royal family. Some recordings revealed moments of fear, employees worrying about repercussions, debating whether to disclose information, or struggling to meet expectations. Others showed moments of camaraderie, private jokes, and fleeting bonds that were invisible to outsiders. The duality was striking, a world both ordinary and extraordinary, mundane yet charged with intensity. The footage of private interactions revealed more than just interpersonal tension. It offered insight into decision-making processes, strategic planning, and crisis management. Meghan, it appeared, often engaged directly with staff on matters that extended far beyond household logistics. Discussions about travel, public appearances, and events were interwoven with private strategy sessions about branding, media engagement, and even potential public perception management. The level of involvement suggested a hands-on approach that contradicted claims of detachment or distance often reported in media narratives. And then there were the secrets that transcended ordinary administrative matters. Some recordings hinted at personal grievances, conflicts with other members of the royal family, and disagreements over protocol that few could have imagined. There were moments of intense debate, exchanges laced with emotion, and even veiled threats that suggested loyalty could not be assumed. Every detail, from a raised eyebrow to a sharp tone of voice, was amplified in significance by the knowledge that these moments had been preserved, stored, and potentially poised for discovery. What made this chapter of the investigation particularly compelling was the psychological weight of the recordings. The FBI described scenes where staff members were visibly anxious, attempting to navigate an environment of constant observation. Some appeared on edge, speaking in hushed tones, glancing over their shoulders, and occasionally confronting one another over perceived breaches of trust. Others were candid, sharing observations or grievances that, had they been known publicly, could have caused scandal or reputational harm. The tension was palpable, a constant undercurrent that gave the yacht an almost claustrophobic quality despite its vast size and luxurious amenities. Even as the FBI cataloged the recordings, questions of intent and agency loomed large. Was Meghan aware of every camera, every hidden microphone, and every stored document? Were these materials collected with conscious intent, or had they evolved organically over time through staff initiative? Some investigators suggested a hybrid scenario. That Meghan's team was aware of surveillance in some areas, while other aspects were the product of staff foresight, personal security measures, or precautionary instincts. The ambiguity only heightened the intrigue, leaving both investigators and the public to grapple with the blurry line between strategy, privacy, and exposure. It wasn't just what was recorded, it was how it was recorded. The angles, the timing, the consistency of documentation, all suggested a deliberate effort to create a comprehensive archive. The FBI noted that certain interactions were captured multiple times from different perspectives, allowing for cross-referencing, verification, and corroboration of events. This level of detail elevated the discovery beyond casual gossip or routine surveillance. It was, effectively, a curated record of life aboard the yacht, one that could be analyzed, interpreted, and potentially used in ways that were both legally and socially consequential. Even mundane moments, such as a staff member arranging flowers in a salon or prepping a cabin for arrival, took on new significance when viewed in context. Observers could discern hierarchies, interpersonal dynamics, and behavioral patterns that were invisible to outsiders. The footage offered insight into how influence was exercised, how authority was negotiated, and how loyalty was both demanded and earned. It became clear that life aboard the yacht was not simply about luxury. It was a microcosm of power, control, and human psychology, all unfolding under the shadow of constant observation. As the FBI moved deeper into the yacht, the sense of scale became overwhelming. Rooms previously thought empty contained small safes, secure storage boxes, and encrypted drives. Each item represented a potential revelation, a hidden conversation, or a strategic document that could redefine perceptions. It was not merely an investigation. It was a slow unveiling of a private universe, meticulously constructed yet precariously vulnerable to discovery. And through it all, the overarching narrative was undeniable. This was a world of contradictions. Glamour and tension coexisted. Privacy and surveillance were inseparable. Loyalty was demanded yet constantly tested. Every moment, every interaction, and every gesture carried weight far beyond what casual observation might suggest. For investigators, the task was staggering. To sift through layers of footage, decipher intentions, and understand the complex social ecosystem that Meghan had cultivated aboard her yacht. Questions proliferated. Could this archive of recordings be used strategically? Were there moments of vulnerability that could be exploited? Could the monarchy, long accustomed to controlling narratives, manage the fallout if these materials became public? Each question carried potential consequences, not just for Meghan, but for staff, advisors, and the royal institution itself. The public, when made aware of even a fraction of these discoveries, would be captivated, scandalized, and eager for more. And yet, for all the detail, the opulence, and the psychological complexity, there remained an ever-present sense of anticipation. The first recordings were shocking, the hidden compartments fascinating, but the yacht held even deeper secrets, moments, meetings, and material that had yet to be uncovered. Every step forward in the investigation seemed to promise more revelations, more intrigue, and more tension. For the British public, and indeed for the global audience, the story was only beginning. But just as the first footage was reviewed and initial reports filed, the FBI had discovered something that shifted everything. The first real indication that the yacht was not merely a repository of recordings, but a carefully orchestrated instrument of leverage. And in that moment, it became clear. What had started as a search for evidence had evolved into a journey into the heart of secrecy, strategy, and human complexity aboard Meghan Markle's private world. What came next would escalate the stakes beyond anyone's imagination, and no one saw it coming. The moment the FBI played the second recording, the atmosphere shifted. What began as routine documentation of staff interactions and private musings had escalated into a confrontation that could not be ignored. The camera captured Meghan in a rare moment of unfiltered emotion, her voice sharp but trembling, as she confronted a senior aide over decisions that had gone awry. The tension was immediate, the stakes unmistakable. Every word, every gesture, every glance conveyed urgency, frustration, and a sense of betrayal. For the investigators watching, it was a study in human complexity, raw, unpolished, and impossible to ignore. Unlike the first recording, which had introduced the yacht as a vessel of secrets, this one revealed the human cost of maintaining control over such a meticulously managed environment. Staff members were caught between competing demands: loyalty to Meghan, adherence to royal protocol, and the pressure to maintain secrecy. One aide, caught mid-explanation, struggled to assert a point without offending, while Meghan's expressions shifted rapidly between anger, disbelief, and a fleeting vulnerability that made the moment all the more compelling. It was the kind of footage that blurred the line between scandal and empathy, an intimate glimpse into the challenges of life at the intersection of power and scrutiny. The conversation quickly escalated into a broader argument about authority and accountability. From the footage, it was evident that the tension had been simmering for days, if not weeks. Subtle references hinted at prior incidents that had eroded trust. There were moments of near-comical miscommunication, where staff hesitated mid-sentence, unsure whether to speak, pause, or retract. But underlying these lighter moments was a current of seriousness. Decisions aboard the yacht were not merely operational. They carried reputational weight, influence over public perception, and, in some cases, potential legal implications. One particularly striking segment revealed Meghan discussing the management of private documents and footage with a senior aide. Her insistence on control over the material was evident, as was the aide's visible discomfort at the level of scrutiny applied to even minor tasks. The dialogue highlighted a tension between transparency and privacy, between professional boundaries and personal oversight. It raised questions about agency. Who was ultimately in charge of these recordings, and to what extent were they intended to serve as leverage, protection, or personal archives? Each question deepened the intrigue, layering complexity onto an already dramatic scenario. Meanwhile, the FBI's forensic team continued cataloging the data. Metadata analysis revealed that the recordings had been systematically stored, with timestamps, indexing, and secure encryption. Some files dated back months, others years, suggesting a long-term strategy of documentation. The investigators noted the level of sophistication. It wasn't just surveillance. It was an archive, a curated collection designed to preserve memory, context, and control. The realization that this had been orchestrated over time added a new dimension to the investigation. This was no spontaneous act. It was deliberate, intentional, and deeply strategic. The psychological impact on staff became increasingly evident as the recordings unfolded. Some aides were shown whispering anxiously in hallways, visibly worried about potential exposure. Others were candid about frustrations with management decisions, sharing moments of honesty that, if leaked, could have professional repercussions. A delicate balance existed between fear and loyalty, between protecting one's own position and safeguarding the confidences of those in power. For the investigators, and later for the public, this duality created a narrative rich with tension, drama, and human vulnerability. As the recording progressed, it became clear that some conversations went beyond operational disagreements. There were veiled threats, insinuations about loyalty, and references to potential consequences for missteps. Meghan's tone, though controlled, carried authority that reinforced the stakes. Observers could almost feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on everyone present. Each interaction was a microcosm of the power dynamics at play. Trust negotiated in whispers, respect demanded, and authority both wielded and challenged. It was a vivid portrait of the challenges inherent in managing both a household and a highly scrutinized public image. The footage also hinted at tensions with external figures, though details remained incomplete. References were made to interactions with royal advisors, media consultants, and possibly other members of the extended family. While names were sometimes omitted or obscured, the content suggested a broader web of influence and negotiation extending beyond the yacht itself. The recordings painted a picture of a world where decisions had consequences not just for those present, but for a wider network of relationships, alliances, and rivalries. It was as if the yacht itself existed as a microcosm of power, where every choice reverberated outward. Audience engagement, as always, is key in this type of exposé. The recording provokes questions that invite viewers into the story. If you were a staff member in this environment, how would you respond? Would you prioritize honesty, loyalty, or self-preservation? How would you navigate the delicate balance between discretion and personal integrity? By framing these dilemmas, the narrative encourages reflection while sustaining suspense, making each discovery feel immediate, personal, and consequential. Another layer of drama emerged from nonverbal cues captured in the footage. Meghan's expressions, the aide's posture, and subtle gestures provided context that words alone could not convey. A pause here, a frown there, a hand gesture signaling frustration. All these elements amplified the intensity of the scene. Investigators noted that these visual cues were as critical as the audio, revealing unspoken dynamics and hidden hierarchies within the yacht's micro-society. The combination of verbal and nonverbal information created a richness that was as compelling as it was revealing. Meanwhile, the recordings revealed moments of strategy and negotiation that were both fascinating and alarming. Discussions about public messaging, private disclosures, and media management suggested a proactive approach to controlling perception. Staff were seen advising, cautioning, or debating courses of action, highlighting the complexity of maintaining a consistent narrative. Every interaction was loaded with potential consequences, and the footage made clear that even minor missteps could cascade into larger issues. This strategic dimension added a layer of intrigue, transforming what might have seemed like ordinary disagreements into high-stakes maneuvering. Complicating matters further was the discovery of overlapping recordings. Multiple cameras had captured the same event from different angles, providing redundancy and corroboration. This not only reinforced the authenticity of the recordings, but also allowed investigators to analyze events with unprecedented precision. Observing the same interaction from multiple perspectives highlighted inconsistencies, emphasized emotional intensity, and revealed nuances that a single camera could not capture. The result was a multidimensional understanding of the environment, a deep dive into human behavior under scrutiny, pressure, and expectation. The ramifications of this second recording extended far beyond the yacht. As details began to leak to select media outlets, public reaction was swift and polarized. Some expressed empathy for the pressures Meghan faced, noting the emotional complexity revealed in her private moments. Others focused on perceived lapses, mismanagement, or the ethical implications of surveillance within a supposedly private domain. The conversation extended across platforms, from news reports to social media commentary, ensuring that the yacht, and the secrets it contained, remained a central point of discussion. Public fascination was fueled not only by the content, but by the implications of what had been captured. It became evident that this recording was a turning point. While the first had introduced the concept of surveillance and secrecy, the second exposed conflict, human emotion, and operational challenges. It illuminated the pressures of authority, the fragility of trust, and the unpredictability of human behavior in high-stakes environments. The footage provided insight into personal, professional, and institutional dynamics simultaneously, making it one of the most compelling discoveries of the entire investigation. And just when the investigators thought they had seen the most revealing aspects, hints of even more sensitive material emerged. A sidebar conversation, partially obscured, suggested that other recordings contained private discussions involving financial matters, personal relationships, and potential strategic leverage over external parties. The tantalizing implication was clear. The yacht held layers of information, some known, some unexpected, all meticulously preserved. It was no longer merely a collection of recordings. It was a vault of influence, perception, and power. As Chapter 2 closes, the tension escalates. The yacht is revealed as both sanctuary and stage, a controlled environment laden with human drama, operational complexity, and hidden agendas. The second recording sets the stage for the deeper secrets to come. The ones that would challenge assumptions, provoke public debate, and forever alter perceptions of Meghan Markle's private world. But what came next would escalate the stakes beyond imagination, and no one could predict the full consequences of what the FBI would uncover next. The moment the third recording surfaced, the investigation took a startling turn. This was no longer about staff frustrations or operational disagreements. This footage revealed secret meetings, encounters that were deliberately hidden from public view, conversations that carried ramifications far beyond the yacht itself. The FBI investigators, accustomed to sensitive discoveries, found themselves leaning forward, captivated not only by the content, but by the implications, strategy, influence, and private agendas intersecting in ways the monarchy and public had never imagined. The first revelation in this recording came from a seemingly mundane meeting in one of the yacht's enclosed salons. Meghan sat at the head of the table, flanked by her closest advisors, a few aides, and a security liaison. The camera angle, expertly concealed, captured every nuance. The way documents were passed, the subtle nods of acknowledgement, the barely perceptible exchanges of concern or dissent. It was clear that these meetings were carefully choreographed, yet the footage exposed a tension that was otherwise invisible. There was a precise balance of authority and persuasion, and anyone watching could sense that stakes were high. Decisions made here could ripple across reputations, careers, and even the perception of the royal institution. What immediately struck investigators was the level of strategic planning on display. Meghan was not merely responding to events, she was orchestrating them. Discussions included media management strategies, timing of announcements, and even contingency plans for potential leaks or scandals. Advisors raised questions, debated phrasing, and weighed the consequences of each move. The atmosphere was tense but controlled, a calculated dance of persuasion and authority. Every word mattered. Every glance could communicate approval or dissent, and all of it had been captured, preserved, and stored, potentially for future leverage. Layered within these strategic discussions were subtle hints of conflict and contradiction. While Meghan presented herself as composed, her expressions occasionally betrayed frustration, disbelief, or urgency. Advisors, in turn, showed a mix of loyalty, caution, and subtle resistance, as if each statement was being evaluated for hidden meaning. Observers could see the intricate negotiation of power in real time, not confrontational, but deliberate, measured, and strategic. It was a microcosm of high-stakes management, unfolding in a world few could imagine, let alone witness firsthand. Adding to the drama were the offhand moments captured in the recording. A whispered remark here, a hesitant question there, a barely audible sigh. It was in these small, seemingly insignificant gestures that the human dimension emerged. The aides were not merely executing orders. They were navigating a web of expectations, emotions, and potential consequences. Some looked to each other for reassurance. Others maintained rigid composure, wary that any lapse could be noted, stored, and used later. The tension between professionalism and personal vulnerability was palpable, rendering the footage gripping, unsettling, and profoundly human. Investigators noted that the meeting included discussion of external contacts, figures in media, business, and perhaps even elements of government. These were not merely social calls. They were calculated interactions, designed to shape narrative, influence perception, and potentially control outcomes. Every aspect of these engagements had layers, timing, messaging, and subtle coordination to prevent misinterpretation. It became clear that the yacht functioned not just as a private sanctuary, but as a command center, a nerve hub where influence, strategy, and secrecy converged. The psychological complexity of this recording was heightened by the interplay between advisors and staff. Some aides hesitated, weighing their words carefully. Others interjected with measured confidence, asserting points while simultaneously deferring to authority. Meghan's responses, oscillating between reassurance and pointed critique, revealed a leader intensely aware of both her environment and the stakes of each decision. It was a lesson in management under pressure, in control amid uncertainty, and in the intricate balancing act required to maintain cohesion within a high-stakes, highly scrutinized environment. But beyond operational matters, the footage revealed something even more startling: private disclosures that suggested the existence of secrets previously unimagined. Meghan referenced prior incidents, carefully obfuscated, hinting at conflicts, negotiations, or agreements that had never reached the public domain. Staff and advisors nodded, exchanged knowing looks, or subtly corrected phrasing, signaling a shared understanding of the gravity of these matters. It was a revelation that hinted at a deeper narrative, one that extended far beyond the walls of the yacht and into the broader world of influence, reputation, and strategy. The stakes became even clearer when one aide referenced potential fallout if certain details were revealed. The recording captured a nuanced discussion about controlling the narrative, managing public perception, and preparing for scrutiny. There was an awareness that even minor missteps could be amplified, misinterpreted, or weaponized. Every interaction carried potential consequences, and the meticulous documentation of these moments suggested a preemptive awareness of the risks involved. It was a chess game, each move deliberate, with the entire system under observation. Observers could not ignore the subtle contradictions within this meeting. On one hand, Meghan demonstrated empathy, addressing concerns with reassurance, acknowledging staff contributions, and framing discussions with consideration. On the other hand, there were flashes of stern authority, moments where direction was given with firmness, leaving no room for debate. The juxtaposition was compelling, offering a multifaceted view of leadership that oscillated between human connection and uncompromising control. It was this duality that gave the recording its dramatic weight, making it impossible for viewers, whether FBI investigators or the public, to disengage. Adding another layer of intrigue were the references to sensitive documents stored elsewhere on the yacht. Mentions of encrypted drives, private correspondence, and footage captured from multiple sources suggested a level of foresight and strategic planning that was remarkable. Staff appeared aware of these resources, discussing them with care, occasionally hinting at the legal and social implications of exposure. It was as if the yacht had become a living archive, where every detail, every interaction, and every nuance was captured for preservation, analysis, or leverage. The emotional resonance of the footage was amplified by candid moments between staff members. While some interactions were formal, others revealed personal anxieties, subtle grievances, and fleeting moments of connection. A whispered comment about exhaustion here, a quiet exchange of understanding there, highlighted the human cost of operating in such an environment. Staff were under pressure, aware of observation, and navigating the delicate line between professionalism and self-preservation. These glimpses of vulnerability lent the footage depth, making the narrative as human as it was dramatic. The investigators also noted the layering of multiple camera angles, capturing the same interaction from different perspectives. This redundancy ensured that nuances were not lost, that gestures, expressions, and tones could be cross-referenced for clarity. In some cases, a raised eyebrow, a slight pause, or a shift in posture revealed more than words could convey. This multidimensional view added richness to the narrative, allowing a comprehensive understanding of the dynamics aboard the yacht. It transformed ordinary interactions into a compelling study of influence, perception, and control. As the recording concluded, the implications became undeniable. The yacht was not merely a private retreat. It was a stage, a command center, and a carefully managed ecosystem of power and perception. Meghan's leadership, the staff's loyalty, and the strategies employed were all captured in unprecedented detail, offering insights into decisions, behaviors, and human interactions that had long been hidden from public view. The significance of these discoveries extended beyond intrigue. They held the potential to reshape understanding, provoke discussion, and challenge assumptions about privacy, authority, and influence. The chapter closed on a note of anticipation and suspense. While the second recording had revealed confrontation and tension, the third recording unveiled strategy, deliberation, and private disclosures of unprecedented magnitude. It set the stage for revelations that would extend far beyond operational details, reaching into the realms of reputation, influence, and the very fabric of trust. The yacht was no longer just a vessel. It was a repository of secrets, each recording a thread in a web of human complexity and strategic maneuvering. But what came next would shift the narrative from private tension to public shock, and no one could have anticipated the scale of what the FBI would uncover in the recordings that followed. The fourth recording changed everything. The first three had introduced the yacht as a space of secrets, tension, and strategic planning. But this recording revealed something far more human: staff breakdowns, emotional fragility, and moments of vulnerability that were almost unbearable to witness. The opulent surroundings, the polished teak floors, the designer furnishings, the panoramic ocean views, stood in stark contrast to the inner turmoil playing out in private. For the FBI investigators, watching these moments was like peering into a pressure cooker, where the heat of expectation and responsibility had finally caused the vessel's human machinery to falter. It began with the crew preparing for a private dinner that Meghan had planned for visiting associates. What might have seemed routine on the surface quickly escalated. Staff whispered nervously about timing, seating arrangements, and dietary restrictions. Instructions were repeated, clarifications sought, and tension grew with each passing moment. The camera, discreetly positioned, captured the anxiety in sharp detail: trembling hands, hesitant glances, and the quiet mutterings of fear. This was not simply concern over logistics. It was the accumulation of months, even years, of high-stakes expectations, secrecy, and subtle power plays, all coming to a head in the enclosed world of the yacht. The first visible breakdown occurred in the galley. A chef, normally composed, began to cry quietly while chopping vegetables, overwhelmed by the constant pressure and scrutiny. Staff members nearby paused, unsure whether to intervene or maintain professional distance. A brief, whispered exchange revealed the source of the stress: long hours, conflicting instructions, and the sense that every misstep could have lasting repercussions. The footage, as the FBI would later note, offered a rare glimpse into the emotional toll of service in a high-pressure, highly scrutinized environment. It was humanizing, tragic, and yet filled with dramatic tension that demanded the viewer's attention. Meanwhile, in another part of the yacht, a senior aide confronted a personal crisis. The stress of managing private schedules, confidential documents, and sensitive interactions with the royal family had reached a tipping point. Subtle signs of anxiety were captured on camera: pacing, fidgeting, and a shaky voice as the aide tried to articulate a concern about upcoming engagements. Meghan's response was calm but firm, reminding the aide of the importance of discretion, loyalty, and focus. The juxtaposition was striking: compassion and authority existing in the same frame, tension and resolution occurring in seconds, all documented without the knowledge of those involved. What made this recording particularly remarkable were the fleeting moments of camaraderie amidst the breakdowns. Staff members shared quiet jokes, offered reassurance, or simply acknowledged each other's struggles. These small gestures provided relief from the intensity, yet they also amplified the stakes, highlighting the fragile balance between personal vulnerability and professional obligation. It was an emotional tightrope, and the footage captured each wobble, each step, and each recovery with cinematic precision. Layered beneath these emotional moments were subtle indications of broader organizational stress. Staff whispered about previous incidents, questioned decision-making, and speculated about potential fallout from mistakes. There was a pervasive sense of uncertainty, as if every day aboard the yacht introduced new variables that could disrupt the fragile equilibrium. The footage suggested that life in this environment required not only competence, but also emotional resilience, strategic thinking, and a constant awareness of shifting dynamics. Investigators noted that these breakdowns were not isolated incidents. Across multiple recordings, patterns emerged. Moments of stress followed by quiet interventions, arguments diffused with tact, and crises managed with a combination of authority and empathy. Meghan, it appeared, maintained a presence that was both directive and supportive, navigating the emotional landscape of her team while simultaneously pursuing strategic goals. The result was a dynamic, high-pressure environment where human emotion intersected with operational necessity, creating drama that was both compelling and instructive. One particularly poignant segment involved a staff member confronting a personal dilemma related to loyalty. The aide had discovered a discrepancy in documents, minor, yet potentially significant, and struggled with whether to disclose it. The footage captured hesitation, whispered consultations with colleagues, and the internal conflict between honesty and the fear of repercussions. Meghan's intervention, calm but assertive, guided the aide through the ethical and operational implications of the decision. It was a masterclass in crisis management under observation, yet the human tension remained palpable, a testament to the emotional intensity of life aboard the yacht. The psychological impact of this recording extended beyond the immediate participants. Investigators observed the compounding effect of cumulative stress, prior incidents, repeated surveillance, and the constant pressure of maintaining perfection. Staff appeared to internalize expectations, often responding to minor issues with disproportionate anxiety. The footage revealed how sustained pressure could erode confidence, heighten sensitivity, and create an environment where small mistakes felt catastrophic. It was both a study in human psychology and a dramatic exposé of the demands placed on those serving a high-profile figure. Meanwhile, subtle elements in the background hinted at external pressures. Security protocols were reinforced, confidential documents were handled with extraordinary care, and whispers suggested awareness of potential leaks or public scrutiny. Staff navigated a delicate balance, managing both immediate tasks and the broader implications of their actions. The recordings demonstrated that every interaction, no matter how minor, had the potential to reverberate beyond the yacht, influencing perceptions, reputation, and strategy in ways that were both unpredictable and profound. The footage also captured moments of tension between staff members themselves. Disagreements over procedures, minor lapses in communication, and differing interpretations of instructions all contributed to the overall sense of emotional volatility. While some conflicts were resolved with diplomacy, others remained unresolved, simmering beneath the surface, creating an undercurrent of anxiety that permeated the recordings. These interpersonal dynamics added depth, drama, and intrigue, transforming the yacht into a living, breathing ecosystem of human behavior under scrutiny. And yet, amidst these breakdowns, there were flashes of humor, ingenuity, and resilience. Staff adapted to challenges, found creative solutions, and occasionally shared quiet moments of levity that offered relief from the intensity. These glimpses of normalcy, juxtaposed against the backdrop of surveillance and emotional strain, heightened the drama, emphasizing the duality of life aboard the yacht: opulence and pressure, control and chaos, vulnerability and resilience. As the recording progressed, it became evident that the emotional weight aboard the yacht was both personal and professional. Staff members were navigating loyalties, expectations, and operational demands in a world where mistakes could be magnified, misinterpreted, or exposed. The footage highlighted the human dimension of service in a high-pressure environment, revealing not just procedural errors or strategic missteps, but the profound emotional toll exacted by constant scrutiny and high stakes. By the end of the recording, the narrative arc was clear. The yacht was a microcosm of power, control, and human vulnerability. It was a space where authority, loyalty, and emotion intersected in ways that were at once fascinating, unsettling, and dramatic. Meghan's presence, while commanding and strategic, was also humanized through the reactions of those around her, highlighting the complexity of leadership under constant observation. The footage offered a nuanced portrait of life in an extraordinary environment, where every interaction mattered, and every moment carried the potential for revelation. As Chapter 4 closed, the implications were undeniable. The first 3 recordings had revealed secrets, tension, and strategy. The fourth added the human element: breakdowns, vulnerability, and emotional complexity. It set the stage for even deeper revelations, hinting at personal, operational, and strategic secrets that had yet to be fully uncovered. The yacht, previously seen as a sanctuary, was now revealed as a crucible of human drama and high-stakes maneuvering. But what came next would escalate the tension from emotional vulnerability to explosive strategic revelations, and no one could have predicted the consequences of the next discoveries. The fifth recording shifted the investigation from emotional vulnerability to the physical space itself. The hidden rooms, secret compartments, and storage areas aboard Meghan Markle's yacht that no one was meant to see. While the previous footage had revealed arguments, strategic meetings, and staff breakdowns, this recording exposed the very architecture of secrecy. Every hallway, every panel, and every locked hatch suddenly had meaning beyond mere design. They were intentional, curated, and guarded, built to protect materials that would shock anyone who stumbled upon them. The FBI's initial walkthrough had already hinted at hidden spaces. Subtle irregularities in wall panels, extra locks on storage areas, and security cameras positioned in unusual angles suggested that the yacht was not merely a private sanctuary. It was a fortress of information. As the team reviewed this recording, it became clear just how meticulously these areas had been utilized. Small safes tucked behind artwork, compartments beneath floorboards, and concealed cabinets all contained material that had never been intended for public or even internal scrutiny. Each discovery added layers of intrigue, revealing a level of foresight that was both impressive and unsettling. The first revelation in this footage was a small, seemingly innocuous room adjacent to the main lounge. On camera, Meghan was seen instructing a senior aide on how to organize a series of binders, folders, and encrypted drives. Her attention to detail was precise. Color-coded labels, staggered filing, and redundant backups ensured that nothing could be lost, misplaced, or inadvertently exposed. The aide, visibly tense, followed instructions meticulously, aware of the stakes. Every gesture, every glance, every adjustment of a binder or folder was captured in sharp focus, providing investigators, and later, the public, with insight into the operational sophistication of these hidden archives. What made this segment particularly striking was the content of the storage itself. Among the files were sensitive documents referencing private meetings, staff notes, and, in some cases, personal letters. Investigators noted the mixture of administrative, personal, and potentially strategic material. Some files were meticulously logged, with dates, times, and annotations. Others were less organized, suggesting they had been placed there over time, perhaps in moments of urgency or concern. This duality, the structured alongside the ad hoc, created an intricate mosaic of secrecy, strategy, and human behavior. The hidden rooms were not just storage spaces, they were arenas of power. A moment caught on camera revealed Meghan discussing the security protocols with her team, who had access, under what conditions, and how records should be encrypted. The aides listened intently, some taking notes, others exchanging subtle glances that hinted at the gravity of the situation. The conversation was deliberate, measured, and layered, demonstrating an acute awareness of both legal and reputational risk. For investigators, the footage was a revelation. The yacht was not simply a retreat, but a carefully designed operational hub, a controlled environment where secrets were not just stored. They were curated, maintained, and managed. As the recording continued, the level of sophistication became increasingly apparent. Compartments hidden behind false panels contained drives with footage from multiple cameras, including some placed in unexpected locations. Every interaction, conversation, and moment of vulnerability previously captured now had a home, cataloged and protected. Investigators marveled at the foresight. It was as if the yacht itself had been designed to function as both a private residence and a secure archive, preserving history, strategy, and human behavior in equal measure. The psychological implications of this footage were profound. Staff members appeared both anxious and hyper-aware, their actions influenced not only by immediate tasks but by the knowledge that these hidden spaces existed. Some aides hesitated before placing materials in compartments, double-checking labels, or ensuring that encryption protocols were followed. Others engaged in whispered consultations, carefully weighing the risks and responsibilities associated with handling sensitive information. The recording captured a constant tension between trust and surveillance, between operational necessity and personal responsibility, a tension that made life aboard the yacht as complex emotionally as it was logistically. One particularly revealing sequence involved a discussion of a hidden drawer containing highly sensitive documents related to staff interactions, meetings with external advisors, and communications referencing broader strategic considerations. Meghan's instructions were precise. Nothing was to be removed without authorization, every action logged, and any deviation reported immediately. The aides complied, some visibly anxious, others maintaining rigid professionalism. The footage emphasized the power dynamics at play, showing the delicate balance between control, trust, and operational execution in an environment saturated with scrutiny and secrecy. Adding to the intrigue were references to materials that hinted at potential leverage. Certain files appeared to contain recordings or correspondence that could influence reputational narratives, strategic positioning, or even legal outcomes. Staff whispered about the sensitivity of some documents, occasionally glancing at one another as if acknowledging unspoken rules about access, disclosure, and discretion. The recording painted a picture of an environment where power was not only exercised but protected, where information itself functioned as both currency and shield. The human dimension of this chapter became even more evident when aides were shown reacting to the discovery or handling of sensitive items. Some displayed anxiety, recognizing the potential implications of what they were managing. Others exhibited pride, seemingly aware of the significance of their role in safeguarding information. Meghan's leadership style, observed in these interactions, balanced authority with reassurance, direction with empathy. She was both the orchestrator and the overseer, maintaining control while acknowledging the human stakes involved. The investigators were particularly struck by the layering of security measures. Cameras positioned in strategic locations monitored both activity and access. Encrypted drives required dual authentication. Compartment keys were restricted to a small number of trusted individuals. The result was a system that was not only secure, but psychologically impactful. Those within it were constantly aware of both the power they wielded and the responsibilities they carried. The footage revealed that this was no ordinary domestic environment. It was a meticulously managed microcosm of authority, observation, and human dynamics. Even mundane tasks, like organizing folders or labeling drives, took on dramatic weight when framed within the context of secrecy and oversight. Staff members handled materials with deliberate care, mindful that each misstep could have implications far beyond the immediate task. Investigators noted the tension in every gesture, the deliberation in every movement, and the layered significance of actions that might otherwise seem trivial. It was an intense, almost claustrophobic sense of responsibility that underscored life aboard the yacht. The emotional stakes were heightened by moments of minor error or hesitation. A misfiled folder, a delayed response, or an accidental glance at a confidential document triggered immediate correction, sometimes accompanied by whispered reminders or subtle tension. These interactions, captured in high-definition detail, illustrated the constant vigilance required of staff, the intricate social dynamics of trust, and the intensity of an environment where secrecy was both protective and oppressive. As the recording progressed, investigators began to appreciate the narrative arc. The hidden rooms and compartments were not merely physical spaces, but symbolic of control, power, and foresight. They represented a meticulous strategy of documentation, a proactive approach to safeguarding sensitive information, and a sophisticated understanding of how perception could be managed. Meghan's role in orchestrating these measures was clear. She was a conductor, guiding every note, movement, and interaction within a complex symphony of secrecy. The implications of these findings extended far beyond operational intrigue. They raised questions about transparency, accountability, and ethics, as well as the human cost of life within a hyper-controlled environment. Staff navigated constant pressure, emotional complexity, and operational responsibility, while simultaneously safeguarding materials that could carry significant reputational consequences. The recording revealed the delicate interplay between authority, trust, and the management of sensitive information, an interplay that would captivate investigators, journalists, and the public alike. By the end of the footage, the narrative was clear. The yacht was far more than a sanctuary or private residence. It was a carefully designed repository of information, strategy, and human drama. Hidden rooms, secret compartments, and meticulously stored materials elevated the space from a luxurious retreat to a high-stakes environment where secrecy, control, and influence converged. Investigators were left with a profound understanding of the meticulous care, foresight, and psychological complexity required to maintain such an environment. And as Chapter 5 closed, the tension escalated. While previous recordings had revealed confrontation, strategy, and emotional fragility, this chapter unveiled the physical infrastructure of secrecy, the very spaces that protected the material which could shock the UK. The yacht was no longer just a vessel. It was a stage, an archive, and a crucible of human, operational, and strategic dynamics. But what the FBI uncovered next would expose the first truly explosive revelation. A recording that could rewrite everything the public thought it knew, and no one was prepared for what came after. The sixth recording marked a turning point. Until now, the FBI had uncovered footage of arguments, strategic meetings, staff breakdowns, and hidden rooms. But this recording revealed something far more consequential: private royal arguments captured on film, exchanges so tense and unfiltered that they could shake the monarchy itself.